Hi everyone, welcome back to Difference Frames the World, a channel that offers a unique perspective on global events. We analyze big international moves in straightforward words and upload videos daily. In this episode, we turn our attention to East Asia, where a rapidly intensifying diplomatic standoff raises questions about security, history, sovereignty, and alliances. Over the past week, the tensions between Japan and China have surged into a war of words after a remark from Japan's new Prime Minister. She asserts that a Chinese move on Taiwan could trigger Japan's own right to deploy its self-defense forces under a survival-threatening situation. Let's walk through the sequence of events that brought this to a full boil. Last Friday, during a parliamentary session in Tokyo, Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi was asked by an opposition lawmaker, under what circumstances might Japan consider a situation threatening its survival, meaning a context in which the self-defense forces could lawfully be mobilized under Japan's 2015 security legislation? In response, Takaichi stated that if battleships and the use of force were deployed around Taiwan, specifically in the form of a military escalation in the Taiwan Strait, no matter how you think about it, it could constitute a survival-threatening situation. That remark was widely seen as a departure from Japan's typical stance, which has been more ambiguous on how it would respond to a Taiwan contingency. The next day, the Chinese Consul General in Osaka, Xue Jian, reshared a news article about Takaichi's remarks on the social media platform X, and added his own commentary: "The dirty neck that sticks itself in must be cut off." Tokyo lodged a formal protest, calling Xue's comments extremely inappropriate. Meanwhile, Beijing lodged its own protest with Tokyo over Takaichi's remarks. China's Foreign Ministry spokesman, Xue Jian, condemned the Japanese leader's comments as a gross interference in China's internal affairs. On Monday, Takaichi defended her remarks, stating that they were part of a worst-case scenario, and that she had no intention of changing Japan's official position. However, she also said she would be more cautious about making explicit comments on specific scenarios. This spat comes on the heels of other recent friction. Earlier this month, Takaichi met a high-level Taiwanese advisor at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in South Korea, which triggered Chinese reproaches about Japan violating the One China policy. Japan has long operated under a post-war constitution that limits its use of force. But in 2015, under then Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, legislation was passed that broadened Japan's ability to act in self-defense and collective self-defense, including in cases where Japan itself is not under direct attack but an ally is and Japan's survival is threatened. The legal term at stake here is survival-threatening situation, and Tokyo's current government has used this phrase before. However, it has historically been vague about when exactly it would apply. Takaichi's remarks marked one of the clearest public articulations yet. If China were to use warships and force in relation to Taiwan, Japan might deem it an existential threat. Why is Taiwan regarded as Japan's strategic flashpoint? Because the island lies at the intersection of major security, economic, and geographic dynamics. The waters around Taiwan are crucial shipping lanes. A blockade or major conflict would ripple across global trade, and Japan believes it could directly affect Japan's security. From Beijing's perspective, Taiwan is considered part of China's territory, and China has not ruled out the use of force to achieve reunification. From the perspective of many US and Japanese analysts, Taiwan's fate is a pivotal factor in regional balance. For many decades, both the United States and Japan have employed a form of strategic ambiguity, refraining from a clear commitment to defending Taiwan in the event of a military action from Beijing. In the United States, Joe Biden was the only president who explicitly said he would defend Taiwan, but the White House immediately denied what he said, reaffirming the US had not changed its stance. Japan's former prime ministers were more cautious because Japan's imperial past, including its invasion and occupation of parts of China during the Second World War, remains a deep emotional and political wound. Takaichi herself is politically rooted in a conservative faction in Japan that emphasizes a stronger defense posture, and is less inclined toward post-war ambiguity. Her ascension adds a sharper edge to Japan's posture. Sanae Takaichi, born in 1961, has been a long-standing member of the governing Liberal Democratic Party in Japan, and has held various ministerial roles, including those in internal affairs and communications. She is considered politically conservative, hawkish on China, and a strong supporter of Taiwan. As Prime Minister, she is signaling a tougher posture, especially on defense and security. Her remarks on the Taiwan issue mark one of the boldest public positions taken by a Japanese leader in recent memory. The Chinese side has responded forcefully. The social media post made by Xue Jian shocked many diplomats and analysts for its vivid imagery and threat-laden tone. Beijing's formal response via Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Jian accused Japan of violating the One China policy and interfering in China's internal affairs. China sees Japan's move as an attempt to drag it into a confrontation, or worse, to embolden Taiwan's independence movement. From Beijing's viewpoint, it was not just about one remark, but about signaling, strategy, and alliances. Japan hosts one of the largest overseas contingents of U.S. forces, and its defense posture is deeply interwoven with the alliance. In addition, as tensions in the so-called Indo-Pacific increase, Japan has been upgrading its own defense spending, strengthening its missile and naval capabilities, and deepening integration with U.S. military plans. Takaichi inherits a Japan already on this path, and her comments arguably accelerate it. Japan's previous leaders tended to avoid publicly specifying when a Taiwan contingency would rise to the level of a survival-threatening situation. By doing so, they preserved strategic flexibility. Takaichi's remarks broke that mold. She gave a concrete scenario. Analysts see this as a turning point. By meeting a Taiwanese advisor and publicly emphasizing cooperation with Taiwan, Japan, under Takaichi's leadership, is signaling a more open alignment with Taipei. That provoked Beijing strongly. While Japan and China are major trading partners, security and strategic competition have grown. Japan's defense buildup, its geographic proximity to Taiwan, and China's growing assertiveness in the East China Sea, South China Sea, and the Taiwan Strait all mean the background risk is rising. Japan's clearer articulation of when it might take action adds pressure on the United States to clarify its own stance. Some analysts argue Japan's move nudges Washington closer to codifying its own Taiwan policy, or at least making it less ambiguous. It's worth stepping back a little further in time to understand how Japan's and China's current tensions are rooted in history. Japan's wars of expansion in the 19th and early 20th centuries, especially the anti-Japanese war during the Second World War, left deep scars in Chinese national memory. The hatred between China and Japan weighs much heavier than that between Germany and France. After its unconditional surrender that ended the World War II, Japan adopted a pacifist constitution and focused on economic growth rather than military projection until 2015. China, after 4 decades of rapid development, has emerged as a major power. The One China principle, which holds that there is only one China and Taiwan is part of it, has been a core linchpin of Beijing's diplomacy. Japan-China relations have fluctuated, with periods of economic cooperation alternating with outbursts over islands such as the Diaoyu Islands. When Takaichi's remarks mention survival threatening and use of force around Taiwan, they are echoing decades of deferred questions about the fragile status of Taiwan. Some anti-China forces seek to internationalize the Taiwan issue, rejecting the United Nations Resolution 2758, and asserting that Taiwan's status has not yet been determined. Even though Takaichi already said she would be more careful about specific language, her support of Taiwan angers Beijing. Diplomatic relations could remain tense for months. China may impose non-military countermeasures, such as economic, diplomatic, or symbolic measures against Japan. Japan might deepen its defense ties with the US, Taiwan, and other regional partners. China, seeing Japan's clearer commitment to Taiwan's defense as a red line, could respond, not necessarily with war, but with increased military maneuvers near Taiwan or the East China Sea. Both sides would likely engage in more military posturing. The risk of miscalculation increases, especially if an incident triggers a chain reaction. It would be fatal to the global economy if that were to happen. Japan, Taiwan, and the Chinese mainland are interconnected in semiconductor supply, electronics manufacturing, and shipping. A Taiwan conflict, or even a serious blockade, could disrupt global supply chains, 10 times worse than Beijing's export control of Nexperia chips. Japan-China ties have always been sensitive. Moves that trigger historical memories or nationalist sentiment can rapidly escalate, and Takaichi's remark regarding Taiwan signals that Japan is less willing to remain ambiguous. Donald Trump has explicitly said the U.S. will not support Ukraine, and that military aid from NATO to Kyiv will have a price tag. It means the U.S. is not interested in prolonging the war in Europe. It is time to abandon Ukraine. NATO, particularly the U.S., needs another Ukraine to mess up the world. Japan is the best choice for the purpose, as Taiwan is too small. On the Chinese side, the state-backed media outlet Global Times ran an editorial saying Takaichi's comments dragged Japan onto a chariot to divide China, leading Japan to a wrong path of no return. China's response was swift, sharp and symbolic, calling the comments interference and accusing Japan of undermining the One China policy. The spat reflects deeper shifts. Japan's security posture is evolving, strategic ambiguity may be giving way to more explicit language. China's sensitivities around Taiwan remain central to its national strategy. While the immediate crisis may be diplomatic and rhetorical, the strategic implications are much broader and long-term. Whether Japan will become another Ukraine remains a question. Still, most, if not all, of 1.4 billion Chinese want to avenge the atrocities the Japanese committed against their forefathers in the 14-year-long anti-Japanese war. The Chinese people value peace, but they are not averse to war if they have to face it. Suppose China had to fight several wars to secure its national safety. In that case, with which countries or regions would China fight most likely? Please post your comments below so other viewers can better understand the situation.